Welcome to the Pickleball Recovery podcast, where we highlight products and practices to help you feel better faster, so you can spend less time stiff, sore, and injured, and more time on the court doing what you love. This podcast is sponsored by Zamst. Zamst reinforces and protects athletes by providing premium technical products in the form of athletic braces and supports derived from innovative materials, designs, and manufacturing processes for the ankle, knee, elbow, and more. Find out more about these high-quality products built to prevent injury, improve performance, and ultimately help you spend more time on the court at www.zamst.us. And use the code PBR to save 15%. What's up? Welcome to another episode of Pickleball Recovery. How you doing? This is your host, Tim Ringgold. It is great to be with you. How you doing? Where are you? What are you doing right now? Are you in the car? Are you on a walk? Are you walking your dogs? I don't know where you are. I'm sitting in front of a computer. It is raining outside right now in Southern California. Yes, it does rain in Southern California in the months of January, February, and March, but that's it. And the week after Christmas. So I guess a little bit of December, but like every week after Christmas, here comes the rain. There's probably a song. Here comes the rain again, falling on my court, screwing up my game, tearing me apart like a new emotion. Yeah, the Eurythmics got nothing on me. You know what I'm saying? Look at that. That's a new hit. Right. You didn't come here to listen to me freestyle songs. No, pretty sure you didn't. Pretty sure you came to listen to another great episode. But you got to get through the intro first. And it's been that kind of a day. So I'm going to be a little more ADD than usual. Strap in, buckle up. I just got home from Florida, where I was in the NPL Combine, which is the National Pickleball League tryouts, basically. I think there were like 64 of us there, roughly. And it was awesome. My goodness, what an amazing event. Shout out to Beth Bellamy, Rick Witzkin, and Michael Chen, and the rest of the team at NPL for putting on a phenomenal event. Super fun, great pickleball, great vibes, great community. Holy cow, so cool. 12 owners, team owners now, or 12 teams this year. There were 6 last year. 12 this year. So all the team owners were there, scouting us, meeting us, hanging out. They couldn't have been nicer. It was just the coolest time. And I want to shout out one of the pod's listeners, Natasha Linton, who I had the good fortune of meeting while I was there, because Natasha won her bracket and guaranteed herself a draft pick in the draft next month. So congratulations again, Natasha. You rocked it. It was super fun playing with you on Friday, and I'm super glad we got to meet and hang out, and look forward to hopefully playing with or against you during the regular season. I did not win my bracket, but from what I was told, I played well and people liked my vibe, and I did the best I could. I feel like I played pretty good. You know how it is when you critique your game, you tend to pick apart your game. Oh, well, let me speak for myself. I tend to do that. But it was very interesting to hear from different owners and what they took away from watching me play versus what I was thinking about. And they were not the same thing. So it's fascinating how what you think people are thinking about when it comes to you is not necessarily what they're thinking about at all. So unless it's that piece of cilantro that's stuck in your teeth. Yes, in that case, they are thinking about the cilantro. So you should, always make sure after you've had cilantro, you should check your teeth. Okay. That's just a no-brainer. Life lessons 101 over here. Okay. Moving right along. Let's get into it. So I had the good fortune of meeting our guest, Dr. Nicole Pitts, on a court, randomly. We ended up in a foursome here in SoCal, played some great pickleball. Nicole's a baller. She is like turning pro and is a mad singles player, has already won gold. Like, she's doing great. And so be on the lookout for her. And we kind of got into it with like talking about nerding out about pickleball injuries and what we can do to avoid them. And so once again, like we just need to hear this stuff over and over from different people in different ways, because at some point, someone either reminds you of something you knew but you forgot, convinces you to finally do what you know, right? And I find that one to be the most often the case. Or just shed some light on something in a way you hadn't quite thought of it, and it really connects the dots for you. So my hope is that the podcast with these, conversations, here we are, I don't know, we're coming up on our third year. Holy cow, look at that. We've done 2 years, just wrapped up 2 years. Oh my God, look at that. Yeah, this is dawning on me in real time, people. I think I launched this in March of 22. So 22 and 23. And now we're turning, what do we turn to? I guess we turned 2, but we're beginning our third year. You know how that is. It's weird. But anyway, I guess happy birthday to the pod. Look at that. All right. ADD. Easy as 1, 2, squirrel. You're welcome. All right. That's enough out of me. Sit back, relax, enjoy the ride, and I'll see you on the other side. Dr. Nicole Pitts, welcome to Pickleball Recovery.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So here we are on whatever we're on, Riverside. It's like Zoom, everybody, the software I use. But where we met was, appropriately enough, on a pickleball court, which is the coolest way to meet people, frankly. So I live in Southern California. You live in Dallas, Texas. How did you end up on a pickleball court in Southern California for us to meet in the first place? Tell that story.
Well, I was out there for a pediatric sports medicine research conference, and I had a little bit of downtime. And so I kind of networked through online. There's some Orange County, just say, oh, I'm here. Is anyone this level? And someone reached out to me, and then I ended up on that court, and then you were there.
And the rest is history, as they say.
Yes.
Yeah. I love the pickleball community because it's organized and it's inclusive. Like you can roll into any city in America and probably in other countries, but definitely in the United States, and you can find a game and you don't need to know anybody.
Yes, that's one of the most amazing things about pickleball. I love it because I used to play professional tennis, and tennis is not like that. You have to have something set up. You just don't walk in a place and have open play or find that and play. So pickleball, it's amazing, and you just take your paddle and I travel a lot, for work or conferences, and I'm able to go, and I don't know a lot of times people there, but I always find, a court and meet people. So it's awesome.
Very cool. And I love that a pickleball paddle is a lot more portable than a tennis racket.
Exactly. When I have it in my bag, it's funny on the plane. Everyone starts talking about it. What is that? And you play pickleball? And then some people haven't, or they have. And so it's a talking point. But yes, much easier to take in a backpack than a whole, tennis bag. And yes, a lot easier.
Yeah, totally. So there we were. We got paired as partners right out of the gate. And we all kind of, mixed around, the 4 of us, but we ended up back together again to dominate and finish off winning, which felt very satisfying. And that was quite a lot of fun. Tell us a little bit about your personal sports background. And then I'm going to ask you about your professional background because they're both relevant. So tell us about your journey as an athlete. Just give us a quick little, I started in this and then I discovered pickle at this point. And that.
Yeah. So I started my journey and was actually in tennis. I started, I moved to Florida when I was about 10 years old. And then I ended up turning professional at 14. So I traveled around the world doing that until I was about 18. Yes, suffered some injuries. And then I always wanted to be a doctor since I was 2 years old. And so, but I thought I was going to do that after my pro tennis career, maybe when I was 30 or something. But my injuries sped that up. And so I started taking some college classes. And then I thought, well, you know what, I'm doing this. I didn't at that point want to try to come back, from injury. And I always wanted to be a doctor. So I said, well, I'll do that and do sports medicine. So around 18, 19, when I started my college classes, I just continued on the path into sports medicine.
Perfect. You started out
And
as a
then,
patient.
yes,
Now you're the doctor.
I was in a lot of orthopedic surgery offices and physical therapies and sports medicine doctors growing up. So I had a lot of experience with that. And they said, I had a couple mentors, and they said they'll love it in med school with your story and your dedication, hard work. So if you want to do that, you should go for it. So I was very lucky in that.
Nice.
And then I always want to do it. So I had great guidance. And then, I did it. So I just, something I always knew I wanted to do since I was very young, 2 years old, and then got into that. And then, off into my school journey. So then I was out of sports for a while. And then I really got into pickleball about a year ago, seriously. I started a little bit before. How I came to know about it, one of my friends, Salome Davidze, who actually plays on the women's tour. She's one of the top players. We grew up playing tennis together since we were 10 years old.
Oh my gosh.
We were the same age. And so we had some serious battles in tennis, and we've been great friends for a long time. And I just saw her posting about playing, and I was like, what is this? And then I was like, well, maybe I could try it. She's like, you got to try it. So I went out and started playing. I will say I whiffed many balls the first time because I used to play with a big Michael Chang tennis racket, which is pretty long. And so it was a big difference. But it was just really fun because, again, I was new to Dallas, didn't know a lot of people. And so it was a way to meet people too. And I went out and met people and played, and it was a lot of fun. And then, I played on and off that year before. And then last January, I just really started picking it up, and I started drilling more, taking it more seriously. And at that point, I wasn't sure what really were my goals with it. But I started playing a lot of singles, and then I entered in some 5-0 tournaments, and then I just kept winning and winning. And then I kind of got hooked at that point. And then I started playing in some pro ones, and then I got a silver in one of my first pro tournaments, and then another one.
Let's go.
And so at that point, I really got into it, and I said, well, I think I could do this. So let's just continue. And then once I get competitive in something, that's it. Hard to stop.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's nothing worse than the taste of early success to cement an addiction.
Yes.
You're like, I like how this feels. Let's do more of this.
Yes.
Yeah. I can relate. That was very similar to my tennis. I mean, my singles journey was very similar. It was like, okay, start out. And for me, it was like start out 4-0 because I am a soccer player. So I didn't have that big ground stroke. And I was like, let's just see what we can do. And then it was like win, 4-5, win, 5-0, win. I'm like, yeah, okay, let's keep doing this. And so I can totally relate to getting hooked on that, going, yeah, this will do. And, in the women's singles pro landscape, this is the time. I mean, it is not saturated. Right. So this is the time to make a run at that. And so your timing is great. And so coming in with that kind of pedigree, and coming into a space that's not already bananas, like tennis by comparison. Right. So it's perfect.
Right.
Love it.
Yes.
So
you kept your Clark Kent.
Getting there, but it's not there yet for sure. So, but you kept the Clark Kent day job, and, right. And so, cause that's smart, cause that's a good job to keep after you work so hard to get into that.
Too many years to stop that. Plus I love it. So gotta keep up with that, but I love doing both. So it's getting me in great shape and pushing my fitness boundaries. And so loving that.
Yeah, it's a great blend, right? Like, so my clinical background, and this was why I enjoyed it, because I have a clinical background in music therapy, and I've worked in hospital and inpatient settings, outpatient settings, and I worked in physical therapy before that as an aide in both inpatient and outpatient and sports medicine. And so, like this morning, I led 2 music therapy groups. Then I went to courtside to the indoor courts to practice for next week combine. Came back here, we're recording this podcast. Then I'm heading back out to run another music therapy group this afternoon. And it's funny because I literally have 2 wardrobes. And, like, which hat do I wear? Like, quite literally. I have, quite literally, I have a fedora on at 10 o'clock this morning, and I have my Gearbox, cap on at 12:30, and I'll be back by the end of the day. And I do enjoy being able to express myself in both worlds simultaneously.
Yes.
It doesn't, for me, it's like, I don't want it to be either or. I want it to be both. I'm going to figure it out, and that's fine for me. So I can relate.
Yes, does make life very busy, but fun and exciting. So
yes. I think one of the emotions that I'm most terrified of is boredom.
Yes.
So having two simultaneous careers handles that.
Oh, it does. I haven't been bored in years. Not at all. But it's also, it's rewarding to do different things that, you become more motivated in the other. And I think it also creates less burnout because, you're doing different things in variety that I think it makes you better in both things that you do when you have more into your life.
Well said. Yeah, totally well said. So now, today, here you are, up and coming pro female pickleball player and pediatric sports medicine doc. And you see sports injuries like every week. And so your nose is already like, your finger is on the pulse of sports injuries. And so just in the time between we set up the interview and now, your natural curiosity of like, where's that intersection with pickleball sports injuries? What did you discover in a very brief cursory search you found very quickly? What'd you find?
Well, a big thing is, recently there's been a lot of talk on like the amount of money that have been spent on pickleball injuries in 2023. I want to say it's like 300 or 400 million. That our article came out last year on that. And then they just came out with a study from the American Academy of Orthopedics, their big conference. I believe it was just this past week. And they talked about, it was like a 90-fold increase in fractures that have happened from pickleball from the past 20 years. Likely some of that due to the increase in players, but there's definitely, fracture that are happening from it.
Yeah. And 90-fold, like I'm not a math major, but I don't even know how to wrap my brain around, how big of an issue, how big of an increase that is, right?
Yes. A lot. They said the biggest was the 60 to 69-year-old range.
Yeah. So let's, and when I started the podcast, it was like, I always said in my head, that this podcast is for the 40 plus pickler, because when you're a teenager, when you're in your 20s, let me speak for myself. When I was a teenager, when I was in my 20s, I definitely felt invincible as an athlete. I didn't, I could throw my body around like I had 8 more in reserve, and I could, it didn't matter, right? And then I noticed, into my 30s, and I was a soccer player, so I also follow pro soccer, and I know there is this fundamental cliff in pro soccer called 30. And mostly one of the biggest things it has to do with is recovery time. Like, you're as the body ages, the same thing happens to Olympic athletes, right? Like they are unable to recover fast enough to train at the level required, to perform at the level required. And so that there's no cheating time and age in that particular category. But I think one of the challenges, and so that's part of the problem in pickle is, we just play too much pickle and we don't give ourselves enough time to rest. But I also think, and I think we talked about this earlier, is that there's been like this explosion of people who have literally gotten off the couch, who may have been athletic at some point in their life.
Yes.
But probably haven't been lately. And they're walking out on the court and like paint the picture that was just making you cringe, about what you see when you walk out to the rec courts. Like this same cohort that was talked about in the study, the 60 to 69-year-old, like you walk out, and how do they walk out and walk up to the courts, and what did you observe them doing?
They'll get out of their car, walk up, they put their paddle in the paddle stack, and then they get out and they start playing games like right away. And like no warm up, no dynamic warm, no stretching, no nothing, not even a little jog, just paddle in, and not even a warm up on the court, lightly hitting, just into full playing and running. And I see that all the time, a lot, most people, I would say. And it's like, oh no.
Is this you, dear listener? I'm pausing. I'm breaking the fourth window right now, and I'm looking right at the camera. If you're just listening to the audio, is this you, dear listener? Are you guilty? Are you guilty of just putting your paddle right in, or this one? You walk up and you know somebody, and they call you on. Hey, we need you, and you're like, oh, I'm needed, and you just run out there to fill that foursome, because God forbid they wait on you while you warm up your body. That might be, not socially acceptable. I don't know. Oh, that guy. Is this you, listener?
Yes.
Is this you? Because this is an intervention. This is where I have brought a doctor on so that if you don't heed my voice, maybe you'll heed hers. So can we just give them some gentle coaching? What are some easy things that you recommend when they walk up to the pickleball court? What's an alternative to jumping right in the first game?
Well, so if there's a weight, they could still paddle stack, but if they at least 10, 15 minutes, do a little jog, walk on their toes, or do heel to toe walks. They can, bring, their ankle back, to their like glutes, and do, quad stretching, but active while walking. Lift their leg up to stretch their hamstring while walking, different kicks, things like that. We want to do dynamic stretching before. We don't want to sit and do like static stretching, just sit down and touch your toes. That's better for after. But you want to do the dynamic, because it gets more blood flow circulating to muscles, warms them up, but it's also stretching them out at the same time. Because if we get on the court and we just start running side to side, not even that your performance won't be there, but also that's when a really increased risk for injuries happen. If you get out and you just run for a ball really fast, you're not warmed up. Your hip flexor is like, nope, I'm not going that way. And that's when it can pull, or that's when an Achilles tear can happen, or injury, because it's just not ready to do that. And it's just pulling hard. And so that's especially in the beginning, the biggest time. And that's why it's so important to warm up. And even out there, just too, when you get out, hitting a few balls, a little bit volleys, even if it's just a couple minutes of hitting slower, just to, warm up, especially your arms and your wrists, because there's a lot of that, and it's very wristy in pickleball. And that's a big difference with tennis, and a lot more hinging and squatting. And just even doing that before just getting out and, hitting a full blast serve and running up and smashing, or being a banger that a lot of rec players like to do. You got to warm up for that.
Yeah. Yeah. I heard in one of the training programs I was in, there was a coach, and it was really great. He was this really salty old football coach. And he made this comment, and I thought it was fascinating. He said, a warm muscle fires properly.
Yes.
Meaning, and what he meant was the electricity that goes into the muscle from our brain, the mind-muscle connection. When the muscle is warmed up, it responds in sync, in concert, all the fibers fire at the same speed, at the same time, at the same impulse. But he's but a room temperature muscle can't be asked to do that same athletic task and do it if it's not almost preheated. And I just thought that's
absolutely.
the most interesting thing.
Yes, that's a great example. And it's true. It can't. So when you're trying to make it do something that it's not ready for, that's when high risk of injury happens, because it's nope. And it's just going to go the other way, or pull or tear something. Yep. And that's especially when those things happen, or early on. And you don't even have to have overplayed at that point or played too much. I mean, you could you could have been off for a week or two and go out, and that can still happen because that, your body just wasn't warmed up properly.
Yeah, I have to think. I was just thinking in my head, the number of times I've seen people go down with an injury, it was always either right at the beginning of the session or way in late, like they were on the court 3 hours, 4 hours, and they were just, their body was way past fatigued and they should have stopped.
Yeah.
And the one more game, 5 more times, came back to haunt them, myself included. I can definitely, I got to point to myself in that one. Coming from soccer, like pickleball is just not as tiring. And so when you would finish playing soccer, you would feel physically exhausted. And you're like, yeah, I just left everything out on the field because soccer is physically exhausting. You're running 11, 12,000 kilometers, over 90 minutes. It's nonstop, right? Brutal. Sprints, all of it. But pickle, not the same. And so I would keep playing until I was exhausted. And I thought, well, I still got something in the tank. But the muscles I was using, totally different than the way I was using them. I'm not running on grass anymore. I'm on concrete. And I'm slamming, up to this kitchen line every other, every for 2 points in a row, every single time that fourth ball, right? I'm coming up or whatever. Like the impact on my legs was so much more brutal than anything I had experienced before. But I wasn't paying attention to my legs. I was paying attention to a ball, stupid ball, right? Like, so I was distracted by the ball and I wouldn't pay attention to the signals that my legs were giving me. And so I'm very much a student in the journey, and that's why you're here. Cause it's like, have the experts tell everybody, don't have me. I'm just as guilty as the next person. I have played one of the guests called it TMP, which is just too much pickleball. And I was like, yeah, that is a thing. It is your adrenaline's pumping, and you wait, you go on and you just go past your expiration date. But yes. I think go ahead.
So yes, it can be very different to the singles and doubles. I would say singles can be definitely more cardiovascular, especially if you have multiple matches in a row. And so a little bit, maybe more like soccer in that sense. But a lot of stop and start, a little bit more anaerobic, but still, I would say cardiovascularly, probably you may feel that fatigue more than doubles. The thing with doubles is it's not as much moving, but it's fun, right? So you have a team, you're playing with people, and so that's where you can be out there hours and be like, oh, it's fine. I don't feel I'm doing good, and not realize it quickly. The thing I've noticed, though, and at least if you're doing it properly, right? Like you said, you're supposed to get up to the line fast. So you're supposed to be explosive, and then you're supposed to split, be ready, and you're supposed to be almost like squatting and really bending down. And then if you think about it, you want to take balls out of the air. And so, but you can't step over the line in pickleball, which is very different than sports. And so you're hinging, you're pretty much in a hinge the whole time. Really, you're loading your hamstrings, your quads, your glutes, your Achilles, everything for hours. And then you wonder, why can I, not feel my legs the next day, and everything's overloaded. But it's really a lot of legs and doubles. And the one thing I didn't realize, and I struggled with this last year, and it's something that I've really been working on the last 3 months, is my mobility, because I could not hinge forward well at all, and I could not reach in the kitchen. And I thought it was a reach thing, but then I realized, no, it's, my spine, my hips, they're not mobile like they should be to do that. And it's something I've really been working on, and it makes such a difference, especially that comes into play in doubles. With all if you're doing it properly, that should be happening.
Yeah, totally. And I will tell you, if I had $1 for every time I have heard hip mobility since I came into pickle, it's unbelievable. Like, that phrase was never on my radar before pickleball, but it's such a sport specific posture that we get into that it almost exposes the sedentary effects of our modern lifestyle, most of us don't take a step higher than 3 or 4 inches ever. So we're not activating our glutes throughout the day. Most of us are sitting most of the day. So our hip flexors and our psoas shrink over time. Our shoulders roll in because we're on computers typing, right? Yes. So then we get these impingement issues, right? Mm-hmm. And really starting to understand like the sport specific posture in pickle and like how hip mobility, like I don't care if my listeners get sick to death of hearing about hip mobility, but what I can tell you guys is that in 2022, I got injured. I had 3 hip related injuries and I played 12 events that year and I missed like 4 because of my injuries. And then I hired a trainer and all he did was pound hip mobility into me. And there's a couple of episodes with him. His name's Kyle Valerie from Stretch Effect, and the early episodes on the pod. Some of you longtime listeners will remember this. 2023, prior to my head injury in May, I played 14 events in 3 months, injury-free.
Wow.
That's a huge difference in output, right?
Yes.
And it was because
that's a lot of events in that time.
That's a lot of events, right? That's singles, that's men's doubles, that's mixed doubles, then that's like maybe amateur men's at this. Like I would play 3 to 4 events a weekend, to at least, 1 to 3 times a month during that first 3 months, 4-month period. And it was because I had just finally broken down and been like, okay, hip mobility. Yes. I will now be a student of hip mobility and internal rotation. Hip IR. Oh my God, hip internal rotation. Like if I hear this one more time, and I will do these exercises to strengthen my super weak psoases, and I will do these stretches to to open up my hip mobility. And what a difference, no hip related injuries, knock on my glass desk, but no hip related injuries since. And my game's gotten better, PS. So if you're someone who's motivated by wanting to get better, move better, right? So talk to people about that hinge and like, what does that equate to? If you move well versus don't move well, like what do you notice at the kitchen line with people?
Well, even just, a lot of people, even looking at rec play, a lot of people get stuck in that transition zone. And yeah. I think a lot of that is some hesitation, but it's the movement, not moving as well. I mean, you've got to really be explosive and move up, but it's hard to do it right. And then let's say you do get up there, you really have to be, bending down and in a squat, but you want to, properly, and you really want to be engaging your glutes, because if not, if you're just leaning over your knees, you're going to end up with knee pain at some point. So you really need to be in the squat properly, really engaging in the glutes, but also then, it's especially harder for females, but having that reach into the kitchen and taking that ball out of the air, which is something that, is very beneficial if you can do and reach and, cut the time off to the other person, but you have to be able to reach. Otherwise, if you can't reach, you'll just go for it. You'll barely tap it. And that happens all the time and not knowing, but it's hard. But in order to do that, you have to be able to hinge forward. You have to have mobility, in your spine and to be able to reach out. And all of that comes from that's, some of it is, yes, you can more strength in the glutes, but a lot of that is, even before that, is purely mobility. Just in getting that mobility will make a huge difference. And, I was listening to your podcast earlier when you did with Callie Smith. And
oh, yeah.
What's funny about that is when I heard her say that she actually didn't, because she hinges and bends probably one of the best on the
She's
tour
crazy.
for women.
Yeah, watch her.
It's amazing.
Her body
and
mechanics are insane.
And to hear her say that she didn't always do that, I just assumed, well, she was, very flexible and could do it. And it's something that she really had to work on. And so, and it's a funny story, because one of the things that I felt like was limiting me in the fall when I started playing higher level in the pro singles tournaments was that I do well the first couple matches, but then I couldn't keep up multiple matches at that level because my legs would just go and I'd get tired. And cardiovascularly, I felt okay, but my legs couldn't keep up. And then they weren't at the ball and they weren't bending, and then balls are spraying and all of that happens. And so I felt like I needed to fix that before I really went out there and started playing again at a higher level. And I also could not reach forward at all past the kitchen line. I said, well, do I not have reach? And I saw like still photos of her doing it. And I said, why? I can't even come close to this. So I took her pictures to see one of the physical therapists that I work with in the local high school. So I'm a team doctor here. And I took to him and I said, look at this. This is what I'm supposed to be doing and I can't do it. And he did some tests and he's like, oh boy, yes, you don't have the mobility at all right now. I mean, it was bad. And this is just like 3 months ago. And well, maybe early November, I think right before nationals. Okay. And so I started working on it, and in a few weeks it really improved, and I've been working really hard on it, and it's made such a huge difference. And I've been working more also on, getting that hip and glute activation, because I had a knee injury probably 8 years ago, some patellar tendonitis, and being in med school and residency and fellowship, and that wasn't what I was really prioritizing at the time. And I had a big strength deficit in my quad compared to my left leg. And it was huge. And the fact that I was even able to run and keep up was amazing, but that's why my leg was fatiguing out. And so I've really spent the past 3 months, myself working on that. And I've seen, great progress. It's making a huge difference with the way I move on the court. And so I'm really excited. In about 3 weeks to get back out there and play some PPAs, APPs, and US Open coming up, and see what the difference is. But I feel it in practice, and just everything is so different by doing that. So it's something that I'm telling people to do, but personally, I'm going through that myself and doing it. Because I will say when I did tennis, probably about 20 years ago now, and I was like, it was very different. Mobility was not as big of a thing then. All of the off-court stuff has become much more prevalent nowadays, and that's, you do see athletes playing older and longer and higher levels now that did not happen before. And a lot of it has to do with the mobility and off-court training and all the core work and balance work that we're doing. And so I really didn't do a lot of that when I played, and what a big difference that could have made then, and all the injuries, I had at the time. But especially now, being in my 30s, and I have to do it. I mean, I have to probably spend more time on that than hitting the ball, because if I'm out there and I'm moving well and I feel well, I play well. But if that's not there, like, it doesn't matter how many hours I'm just hitting the ball, like, that's not going to be there. And so I've really had to change how I structure things and do things at this point.
Amazing. Amazing. So then let's share one mobility exercise and one strength exercise that have helped you the most.
Well, I would say like cat-cow is a really good one for the low back. So just kind of bending over and that would be probably one of the best one. Hip cars are another good one.
Yes.
You're rotating your hips. So those are a couple.
Oh my God.
Simple, good ones to start with.
The sound that comes out of my right hip when I do hip cars, a clunk, clunk, and it's my right hip. It's not, you know what I mean? And it's like, it's utterly predictable, but what are you going to do? You got to do it.
Yes. I would say a strength one that I really like. And honestly, I've been doing it even before getting out there and playing, because I really feel like it warms my legs up well. It's just taking a resistance band and putting it around your ankles, and not even going in a deep squat, just mild knee bend, and just taking lateral steps side to side. And then you can do forward and back. And then if you want to advance it further, you could, do jumps with it and different things and get going. But even just to keep it simple, put a band on your leg and just walk side to side with your knees slightly bent,
Yep.
10 steps each way, 10 steps the other way a few times. And that will really get your hips going, your quads. It really start activating, everything, your peroneals, your calves. Great thing to really get warmed up. And I've been utilizing that a lot more just it's not in terms of a strength thing that's so overbearing that you couldn't do it on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And the load is not too heavy. So I think that would be a good, simple one to do.
That's a great shout out. And a resistance band fits in your bag. So people, there's no excuse. You don't need a gym membership for it.
No.
While you've put your paddle in the stack, you can put on a resistance band. Flex Fit, I think, are the ones I have, and they're in my bag. And you can just get to work strengthening, activating, in this case, those muscles that don't normally have that mind muscle connection, that neuromuscular connection. We don't use it during the day. So we need to wake them up, both neurologically and physically. And so that's a great shout. Awesome. Anything that we haven't touched that you were like super excited to talk about that you wanted to?
Well, I think hydration is another big thing because
yes, it is.
If you're not, hydrated well, then, your muscles can be stiff and tight and, go out, and that can increase risk for injury too. And also, with recovery, you're out playing a lot, and if you're not hydrated well or, hydrating before or after, then it can, lead to more fatigue, more soreness, and that the next day. But what's important is, don't just get out and then try to hydrate. If you're waiting till you've gone out to play, it's too late. And ideally, you shouldn't be the day of either. You should be, pre-planning, and definitely the night before or days before, but really on a regular basis. You should be incorporating that. I do have that in clinic where it gets tough running around and remembering to drink fluids and then go practice later, but it's really important. Otherwise it just feels tight. Everything just feels like, like you're going to snap something in half, and it's a big thing.
Yeah. Well said. There was a great study done with D1 athletes where they found that 2/3 of all D1 athletes that were surveyed for this study showed up for practice hypohydrated, which isn't dehydrated, but it's not hydrated. It's just underhydrated. Now, D1 athletes are like thoroughbred racehorses. They're like, that's their job. They're in the peak physical condition. And if 2 out of 3 of them are underhydrated when they show up for practice, I guarantee that number's higher at the pickleball courts.
Yes, absolutely. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. Feel like, can you imagine just doing like a randomized study where you just like at like 12 different pickleball courts around the country, and you could just test that? You'd just be like shaking your head. You'd be like, oh my God, it's an epidemic. They're all dehydrated.
It's not, and these things are, yes, they do take work. Remember, hydrate and warm up. And like you said, someone is saying, oh, come play with us. And it takes a lot to say, no, I got to do this and wait, because people do the same to me. And I'm like, nope, not yet. I got to warm up. And it's hard because you want to get out and you don't want to feel left out. And I get that. But if you love it and you love playing, I mean, you have to do it. It's going to increase the longevity of your playing. So let's say that you just love playing. You're like, I don't care if I get better. I just want to keep playing it, all day because I love it and every day. Well, these things are going to help you do that, longer. Yes. Or if you are the one that says, I want to get better, I want to play tournaments, or why am I not getting better? Then, these things are going to help you, the hydration, the muscle activation, the warm up, because you're going to be able to move better and play better, by doing these things. And they're 100%. A huge part. I guarantee you, if you're not doing them and you incorporate them in, your game is going to improve without even touching a pickleball and practicing and getting back out there. You will already be better.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said. Amazing. All right. Well, listen, Dr. Nicole, where do people find you online?
I'm on Instagram at it's Pickleball Doctor DR.
Let's go.
So yes, you can find me there.
Awesome. Well, listen, Dr. Nicole Pitts, thank you so much for joining us on Pickleball Recovery.
Thank you for having me.
Woohoo. Thanks so much for listening. Did you know there's one place on the web for all your recovery needs? It's at www.pickleballrecovery.com. You'll find all the products I personally use and recommend, along with exclusive discounts on many of them, as well as my blog where I help you make sense out of all the different products and practices out there to keep you moving and feeling better so you play better. After all, your body is the most expensive piece of equipment you own. Also, do you want to know the number one mistake picklers make that leads to increased pain, soreness, stiffness, and injury? Just head over to pickleballrecovery.com and download my free guide to playing with less pain and more enjoyment. Listen, pickleball makes us feel young at heart, but not young in body. So go download my free guide at www.pickleballrecovery.com. See you next time.